Park a 2010 F-150, a 2010 Silverado, and a 2010 Ram 1500 side by side in any parking lot in America, and you will see 3 trucks that all rolled off assembly lines the same year, all sold for roughly the same money, and all promised to last a lifetime. 15 years later, only one of them is still doing exactly what it was built to do without draining your bank account. I have been turning wrenches for 23 years, and I have rebuilt, repaired, and buried engines from all 3 of these trucks more times than I can count. Today, I am telling you which one actually earned its reputation, which one is coasting on marketing, and which one you should avoid buying used no matter how good the price looks. Let us get into it. Start with the Ford because the F-150 from this era carries the biggest reputation and the biggest asterisk. The 2009 through 2010 trucks mostly came with the 5.4-liter Triton 5.8, and if you have spent any time around Ford trucks, you already know where this is going. That engine has a well-documented history of spitting spark plugs out of the cylinder head. It happens because Ford used a 2-piece spark plug design with shallow threads cut into aluminum heads, and under heat cycling those threads strip out. I pulled 3 of these jobs last year alone, and every single time the customer had no idea it was even a known issue until the plug blew and took a chunk of the coil pack wiring with it. A repair like that runs $600 to $1,200, depending on how badly the threads are damaged, and if a shop has to helicoil all 8 cylinders as a preventative measure, you are looking at closer to $1,800. On top of that, the 5.4-liter uses a 3-valve head with variable cam timing, and the cam phasers on these engines wear out and start rattling around 130,000 miles. That is another $800 to $1,200 repair once you factor in labor to get to them. A customer of mine bought a 2010 F-150 XLT with 142,000 miles 2 years ago for $9,200, thinking he was getting a deal. Within 8 months, he had replaced 4 spark plugs and a full set of cam phasers. Total cost, just under $2,600. He still owns the truck and it runs fine now, but that is the trap with these trucks. The purchase price looks attractive because the market already knows what is coming and it prices that risk into the used value. If you do find one that had the recall work done and the phasers replaced by a previous owner with documentation, it can be a solid truck for another 100,000 miles. Just do not buy one blind. Late 2010 and 2011 trucks that got the 3.5-liter EcoBoost are a different story entirely, and honestly a better one on paper, with 365 horsepower and real towing numbers, but they are still too new to fully judge at the 15-year mark, and the early EcoBoost trucks had their own issues with timing chain stretch and carbon buildup from direct injection that the older 5.4 never had to deal with. Now the Chevy. The 2010 Silverado 1500 with the 5.3-liter V8 is, in my professional opinion, the most quietly competent half-ton truck of this entire generation, and it does not get nearly enough credit for it. This engine is a direct descendant of the small block Chevy V8 lineage that has been refined since the 1950s. It uses a simple pushrod design, port fuel injection, no turbo, no direct injection carbon issues, and a timing chain rated to outlast the rest of the drivetrain. I have a regular customer, a landscaper, running a 2009 Silverado 1500 with the 5.3-liter V8 that just crossed 238,000 miles. Outside of routine maintenance, his only real repairs have been an intake manifold gasket at 156,000 miles, which is a known weak point on these engines because GM used a plastic composite gasket that can crack and leak coolant and a set of ignition coils around the same mileage. Total cost for both repairs combined was under $700. That is the entire major repair history on a truck that has been hauling mulch and mowers 6 days a week for over a decade. The 4-speed and 6-speed automatics paired with these engines, depending on model year, are also proven units, and a rebuild when the transmission finally does wear out runs about $1,800 to $2,200 installed, which is roughly what you would pay for a single major repair on some of the more complicated trucks from this same era. The weak points to actually watch for on a Silverado from this generation are rust on the rear frame rails, especially in states that salt the roads, and the intake manifold gasket I already mentioned. Check the coolant reservoir for any oily residue and check underneath for frame rust before you buy one. If those come back clean, you are looking at a truck that can realistically push 250,000 to 300,000 miles on the original engine with basic maintenance. Then there is the Ram 1500, and this one splits right down the middle depending on which engine you get. The 5.7-liter Hemi 5.8 is a genuinely strong engine with a reputation for durability that is largely deserved. It uses a cast iron block, and even with the multi-displacement system that shuts down 4 cylinders under light load to save fuel, the core engine holds up well over time. I have seen Hemi-powered Rams from this era cross 220,000 miles on the original engine without major work. The issue that actually causes headaches on these trucks is not the engine internals, it is the exhaust manifolds. Chrysler used a manifold bolt pattern and material combination on the 5.7-liter that is prone to cracking and warping from heat cycling, and once that happens, you get an exhaust tick that sounds like a rod knock to anyone who has not heard it before. A full manifold replacement with new bolts and gaskets runs $500 to $900 per side depending on labor rates, and it is common enough that most Ram specialists will diagnose it within 30 seconds of you describing the sound over the phone. The 5-speed automatic behind the Hemi in these years is generally reliable, though it does benefit from a fluid change every 60,000 miles rather than the extended intervals some owners followed. Where the Ram really loses points is on trucks that came with the 3.7-liter V6 or the early versions of the 4.7-liter V8, which had documented head and cooling issues before Chrysler revised them. If you are shopping for a Ram from this generation, the 5.7-liter Hemi is the one to target. And even then, budget for exhaust manifold work as a near certainty rather than a possibility. A customer of mine bought a 2010 Ram 1500 with the Hemi and 165,000 miles for $8,600 last year. Within 4 months, he had replaced both exhaust manifolds for a combined $1,400. He is happy with the truck today, but he will tell you that repair should have been reflected in the purchase price because it almost always shows up sooner or later on trucks from this era that have not already had the work done. So after 15 years and thousands of these trucks through my shop, here is how I actually rank them. The Silverado with the 5.3 Vortec comes out on top, not because it is flashy or because it has the most horsepower on paper, but because it was engineered with almost nothing left to fail. Simple fuel injection, a timing chain instead of a belt, a transmission that does not need babying, and one well-known gasket issue that costs under $400 to fix. It is the truck I would buy tomorrow if someone handed me $9,000 and told me to find something that would run for another decade with minimal drama. The Ram 1500 with the Hemi comes in second. The engine itself is strong and the truck drives beautifully, but you need to walk in expecting exhaust manifold work as part of ownership, not as a surprise. Budget for it up front, and this truck will reward you with real V8 power and a comfortable ride for the long haul. The F-150 with the 5.4 Triton lands in last place, and it pains me to say that about a truck with this much brand loyalty behind it. The spark plug issue and the cam phaser wear are not rare exceptions. They are the norm for this engine at high mileage, and unless you find one with documented repairs already completed, you are essentially buying a truck with a known expense sitting on the horizon. If you are shopping the used market for a 15-year-old half-ton truck right now, do not just trust the badge on the tailgate. Ask for maintenance records, specifically anything related to spark plugs and cam phasers on the Ford, intake gaskets on the Chevy, and exhaust manifolds on the Ram. A truck with documentation of that work already done is worth paying a little more for, because it means someone already absorbed the risk that the market price is quietly betting you will not notice. 15 years is long enough for the truth to come out on any vehicle, and in my shop, the truth on these three has been consistent for a long time now. Buy the Chevy with confidence, buy the Ram with a repair budget set aside, and buy the Ford only if you know exactly what you are getting into. If this kind of honest shop floor comparison is useful to you, hit subscribe, because I break down vehicles like this every single week using real repair data instead of brand hype, and drop a comment telling me which one of these three you are currently driving. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Drive safe, take care of your truck, and it will take care of you.